to our 14th Community of Practice. Thank you for hitting the record. So we will dive in. Today's session, we're going to start with the welcome, a check-in, and a session overview. We're going to ground the community of practice with some historical context for our newcomers. Then we're going to do some reflection questions with Mentimeter, and then hear a little bit from Ashley about SREB Crisis Recovery Framework and training. We're then going to go into breakouts to sort of connect on crisis recovery and response. Then we're going to share some resources and close ourselves out. So I'm going to pass it to Erica to frame and introduce us for the COP today.
Thank you, Stephanie. Hi, everyone. Good morning. So just as a review, as we typically do, but for any newcomers, welcome. So Stephanie and I are representing the JED Foundation. Our mission is to protect emotional health and prevent suicide for our nation's teens and young adults. Next slide. The JED Foundation was founded by Phil and Donna Satow, who tragically lost their son Jed to suicide in 1998 when he was a college student. And at the time, there was really no standard practice for how to intervene with students and think about how to holistically think about suicide prevention across campus. And they founded the JED Foundation in 2000 to change that. So, a little bit about our approach in Kentucky. We always say this is very unique. It has been a pilot and has been really exciting to learn from and with you all. We have several diverse implementations happening. So, we have six schools in the state of Kentucky who are implementing JED Campus, which is our 4-year strategic planning process where we identify and assess policies, systems, and practices and help schools through a 4-year journey towards those goals. So we're really thrilled to be implementing, and some schools are driving the force through strategic planning and also alumni. We've had 2 in-person convenings, and we're really thrilled and excited for our third one coming up. We've done 14 to date communities of practice. Today is lucky number 14. Our 16 community and technical college schools have administered the Healthy Mind Study, which is out of the University of Michigan, which studies students' attitudes and behaviors. You have access to that data. We can share it accordingly. And through that process, we've had 7 community practices and 8 task force meetings to inform how the data is shaping the work. We've had guiding teams throughout this journey thinking about how do we bridge the strategy and practice. And out of all of this, we've developed and delivered 2 mental health strategies, one for the KCTCS system and for Kentucky statewide. Next slide. So this effort is a joint initiative with CPE, KCTCS, JED, and the Healthy Minds Network. We're doing it all together to reach 200,000 students, all data informed by what students are saying about their campus life and access and what resources they still need. Next slide. So we like to kind of frame this up as what's the imagery to define our really exciting Matrix pilot program. So we have the KCTCS strategy, the statewide strategy, and we have parallel paths where we converge and meet together to think about how does this really look on the ground for the over 25 institutions. And the idea is to how do we exchange and network and strengthen our work together. Next slide. So we thought about this community practice of care to, again, support the strategies, advance it, and share lived experience. We learn from you each time we do these, and it's a great way to come together and take a break from our daily work and collaborate on resources and real world experiences. We learn by doing, so you'll see a lot of Mentimeter experience, Zoom chat, learning about who's in the room, an opportunity to ask questions, share what's going on your campus, and reach out for one-on-one support. So the last time we did this, we focused on substance misuse and recovery, where we explored how campus-based approaches. We hear from guest speakers, which are a lovely way to sort of see what's going on in the field. Our focus today will be on crisis response and resource. Again, this is all tailored and informed by our strategy. We're going to start by defining what a crisis is, especially in the higher education, mental health sort of sphere. Then we're going to move into breakout to discuss campus resources and then conclude with the SREB Crisis Recovery Counselor Framework. Really looking forward to hearing about that. Next slide. Okay, as I said, we are celebrating our 14th community of practice. Like, whoa, if you have been here since day one, we're so happy you've stuck around. If this is your first one, so happy. So we really invite you to turn on your camera in the next 3 to 5 seconds. And just again, another celebratory moment.
All right,
And Stephanie
everyone.
will tell us when to
Yes,
smile.
I will count us off.
Okay.
Um, all right. Are we ready? Three, two, one. Thank you, everyone. I captured it.
Thank you.
Of
Really
course.
appreciate that. And kick it off to Stephanie.
Thank you, Erica. So for today's session, we thought to really lay the groundwork as the word crisis can be defined in so many ways. We thought we'd talk about, the different types of crises. And in the pre-reading we provided, it sort of goes through a couple of them, and I'll share those out right now. There could be a clinical crisis. There could be a rise in students with severe diagnosable mental health conditions. There could be a coping crisis. Maybe students are really struggling to bounce back, just from everyday stress, as we know. There could be an access crisis. There could be counseling centers just overwhelmed with wait lists and staffing capacity issues. There could be a language crisis. There's so much terminology being thrown around today, as we know, social media also plays a part in that as well. So, really describing what students are going through, even staff, can be influenced by that. There could also be, lastly, a systems crisis. There's this intense pressure to succeed, not just as a student, maybe as a faculty, combined with financial stress and any other factors that are factoring into that. So we wanted to just share this as sort of like a foundational. But as I'm sharing these, are there any challenges that you're seeing on your campus that aren't on this list? Because I'm sure that there are other ones. So opening the floor to folks to chime in.
This is Mary. We don't have a counseling center, so we don't have care on campus. And to me, that's a crisis by itself, is just not having access. I mean, you talk about like overwhelmed in demands and wait lists, just having somebody. I'd welcome a wait list right now.
Yeah, and that's part of what this reading acknowledges. Like, it's so vastly different across schools. Some schools, like you said, don't have a center, and so
Yeah.
even having a wait list is a win. Um, Anyone else, feel free to come off mute or use the chat function.
I'm having a hard time articulating this, but I think embedded in a lot of these places is like a community resilience kind of crisis, like that, at least in the higher ed context, like folks that are like, oh, well, that's, a student services challenge, not a me challenge. So like that resiliency of other folks within the community that could provide support, upstream support, but maybe don't feel empowered to do so or don't have the skills to do so or whatever. So I don't know that that maybe is crisis language, but that's what's in my head at the moment. So thank you for letting me take over and ramble.
Never rambling, Bob. And thank you. Yes, setting up those systems so folks have where to direct students or faculty that are in crises, is important as well. Anyone else want to chime in? We will move along to our reflection activity with Mentimeter. I will be putting the link in the chat to join us there. But if you'd like as well, you can go to menti.com and put in the code at the top and just give me a thumbs up so I know you're in there. And as always, if there's any troubleshooting issues, let me know. Thank you for the thumbs up. All right. So to frame our first question, again, there's so many different ways to describe crisis management, crisis itself, but specifically at your institution, how is crisis management defined? And this is a word cloud, but if you feel inclined to do so, to elaborate, or if you have any more, like a sentence to describe it, because you can't describe it in one word, I welcome that as well in the chat. Looks like a bit team. Not sure. That's okay too. Ambiguous. There's a crisis within the crisis management. Institutional risk manage. There's like a vague sense of what crisis management is at the institution. Potential risk bit. Not focused on students. Yeah. So it looks like a majority of these are like, you're unsure. And we totally validate that. I think today we're hoping to maybe help you sort of articulate what specifically is not clear so that we can, yeah, further clarify that. Scrambling, compliance. I'm going to leave the floor open. Does anyone want to elaborate on their responses? And thank you, Erica, for putting the article in the chat. I'd love to hear from the folks who are not sure. It's kind of ambiguous on their campus.
I'll say, I feel like on our campus, we do have like defined processes for handling a crisis, but um, it's like we have a care team that functions as our bit team. But when a crisis actually happens, it is more of a scrambling, all hands on desk, on deck. Safety could be involved, counseling center could be involved, Res Life could be involved. It's just like and then after the fact, that situation goes to the care team. So it's almost like the policy and procedure process is separated from the actual crisis in the moment. That's why I was the one that typed in the word crisis, because I was like, well, that is what we call it. We call it a crisis if it happens, and then everybody's scrambling. So
Yeah, thank you, Gina. It sounds like, we want all teams on deck, but then, what is the process for getting this information centralized so that we can provide it to the team that's going to respond? Thank you. So I will move us along. If you have any further thoughts, I welcome them in the chat. Our next question is, reflecting on a time you supported a student in crisis, which best describes your experience with your campus systems? Was it seamless? There were protocols that worked. Was it frictional? Maybe you knew the steps, but admin sort of like had hurdles to make it difficult. I already see one there. Was it uncertain? You weren't sure about your role, maybe, or maybe was it inadequate? Was there a significant gap in your current resources? And I believe I allowed for folks to select more than one, but if you want to describe it for like seamless and frictional, let us know. It looks like for most folks, yeah, for Bob, it was uncertain and frictional. Yeah, because it can be uncertain and at the same time, there are some hurdles. For whoever put seamless, we would love to learn from you and what your campus has protocols in place. So yes, would love to hear from you. All right. Looks like we're all around, but specifically in the frictional part. And again, today's session is to really help you define specifically what is ambiguous or unclear. So we'll move us back to the deck. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating. Now I will pass it to Ashley to talk a bit about the SRB EB training for counselors in the framework.
Thank you, Stephanie. I am kind of, dare I say, excited to hear that we are all experiencing like the same things. It makes me feel like, right, we all have something to learn and improve within our own campus communities, because there is, except for the one person who has the seamless process, I would for sure love to hear about that experience as well. But I, for just a few minutes, want to share with you guys this training that I had the pleasure of attending. And I'm hoping that through this presentation, through an opportunity for the state of Kentucky, that maybe we could be one more step prepared for a crisis, or helping a student. You know, my biggest takeaway is that sometimes we feel we have to do it ourselves, but we don't really take a step out and see who else is in our community or our network that we can lean on. And I'm really excited to know that there are folks out here who are more than willing to be a part of somebody's community and process, because it truly does take a village. So if I ramble, Stephanie, reel me back in. I'm just truly really excited to share this experience with you guys. Next slide. I want to say it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago that I attended the Southern Regional Educational Board Crisis Recovery Counselor Training. It was in Madison County, Kentucky, so kind of right outside of Richmond. And through this network, they have an emphasis on K through 12 and post-secondary education training of counselors, and being this network of support if a crisis does happen. And I took away so much. I will share with you, the only post-secondary education person in the room. So hearing a lot, unfortunately, of the K through 12 experience, I really started to think like, well, where does this show up for us, you know, in post-secondary education? Because the worlds are so different. But I'm thinking if they're just getting their networks to a good place, then like, you know, post-secondary education, we still have so much to learn. So through this this training, it truly helped to understand how many approaches there could be, how we can better understand, respond, and recover when a student or a community is in a crisis or experiencing a crisis. Next slide. Here's just a brief summary of what this network provides. It is truly support for the year-long, you know, health and emotional support of the students. It is truly another extension of trying to help students, faculty, and staff. And it allows for other counselors across, I think it's 18 states, to also come in to help offer support and services. And it helps to coordinate. Somebody had mentioned earlier, it's like, oh, these people might be tapped in and these folks might be tapped in. And the community aspect, everybody wants to help, but there's no true process. Everybody just comes to show up. So I like that there's a coordinated effort of community and state agencies to help with campus partners, help support students, faculty, and staff during this time. Next slide. And how it kind of works is, before, you know, resources are deployed, it's truly understanding what is a crisis, and how are we going to build this understanding. I want to say, through this training, somebody experienced a crisis, it's not that we show up day one. It's truly understanding what has happened, making sure it is physically, safe for folks to come in, that the real work starts to happen, and that we can recognize through talking to our network that we have something or some folks that need help with navigating the crisis that they just experienced. So there's a little bit of, dare I say, triaging that comes first with experiencing something, as we all know. And then thinking about the different levels, right? We're within our own ecosystem, and how do we help strengthen a response at every level? Because again, folks are going to want to come in, they're going to want to offer help, and that can also be overwhelming to a community. We want to ensure that folks feel safe on every level to ensure that whatever resources are needed, that they are able to process and help bridge those gaps to a nice, seamless response to the recovery. And I think it's even more important thinking outside of our campus communities of what does that involvement look like? We have our direct, support of that community center down the street, but what happens if they're also overwhelmed? I think we don't think about what's the next level up and what does that look like. I think it's very easy when a community of, a certain size is impacted, right? Right. FEMA and the National Guard and all those folks come in. But if we're in between those levels, like, who else do we tap into? And I'd like to think, being in post-secondary education, one thing I learned from the K-12 folks is I live in Louisville, so the school system here is very vast, right? But when I think about the experiences that I heard folks talk about is, their district, how the local elementary school is truly connected to the high school. And I thought to myself, like, I don't know if we, have that connection in post-secondary education. I think the first thing that comes to my mind is every public kind of has that community college that's connected to it. But outside of the 2 or 3 pockets of schools, like, what's the bigger network? How does, I'm picking on Bob because I can see him. How does NKU support a Louisville or a UK? Like, do we have that network built out? And I don't know if we do, if we truly needed support. I know I could personally pick up my phone and send an email to Bob, but that's one person handling that exchange. Is there a real system in place? And I'd like to think there is, but until that crisis happens, nobody wants that knee-jerk reaction. So trying to build in some more sustainability within a system of support and tapping into the regional network that could exist for us. Next slide. And as I think about this, one thing that I truly thought about during my training, and I'll take a second to be, vulnerable with you guys, I kept thinking about Kentucky State and this past fall, what they experienced as a college campus. And I just thought to myself, who is supporting those students and that staff? I think, right, we all have a person that we could reach out to say, hey, how's your campus doing? But as a post-secondary education network, how are we leaning in to support that campus community as a whole? And I just thought we could be doing a better job. And I want to be able to do that for anybody, right, that experiences a crisis. So as I went through that training, I always had them in mind. When I thought about them, I'm thinking about, Brown University and all the campuses that have experienced something. And I think for me is, right, you hear, oh, we canceled class for the day, for the rest of the week, for the rest of the semester, but no campus community has ever come out and said, this is how we made it through. It kind of just has always died down. And I'm thinking for a long time, those students who are there have experienced something, are always going to need support, knowing that counseling centers are always going to have wait lists. And, what if that student needed something right then and there? How does that support look? And how are we tapping in to our other partners to provide that support? So I hope that through this SRB training that we think about our own institutions and how we're going to continue to build out that network. I'd like to continue to explore that time and how we can make ourselves stronger. I know a couple of you have probably gotten a few emails from me about this training opportunity through SREB, working on trying to finalize a training that could happen in June. If you are interested in learning and taking away a few things, please let me know. Happy to shoot you the link. But I would like to share that opportunity with folks so that we can build our network again. And I know I'm a little over for time, but sorry, Stephanie. I just think this is just a good opportunity to, again, we are one band, one sound as it comes to thinking about our students on our college campuses. And as this is one of the main pillars for the mental health strategy, I thought it was very fitting, and welcome any feedback or direction as you guys continue to think about how crisis from the student all the way up to the community is going to be defined. I think that is a tremendous opportunity to continue to engage students on what's important to them, and even caregivers, guardians, and parents, because a college campus has so many levels and dynamics. Like, what does that operationally look like? Could be a huge undertaking and could feel very stressful if you're in it and have that knee-jerk reaction and just are pulling. So not that we want things to happen, but I think the saying is proper preparation prevents poor performance or something like that. So I'm just thinking about all the ways we can continue to be prepared and have our homework and prepare for student success in that way. So with that being said, I will pass it back over to Stephanie to have us think about these things within our breakout sessions.
Yes, thank you so much, Ashley, for that overview. And if you're interested at all in speaking with Ashley further about that, towards the end, we will have her contact information if you'd like to reach out to Ashley. So right now we will be going into breakouts for about 10 to 12 minutes. And in these breakouts, I'd love for you to discuss with your team on what is visible on campus in terms of crisis resources or communication channels, and what's clear and active, but also what is missing. What are the blind spots, the missing links, or the unaddressed needs in your institution's current strategy? And after that, we will share our takeaways through Mentimeter or off mute if you feel inclined to do so. But yeah, Nan, would love your support in creating the breakouts. Thank you.
Sure, I'll open them now.
Thank you.
The instructions, just making sure we can put those in the chat as well. I'm going to try to do that.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you, Erica.
Okay, I'm headed that way. It looks like everybody's in their breakout room.
Yes. Everyone. We always say we always need more times for these conversations, and so I
That's a
hope,
good conversation.
yes, I hope there was hopefully enough time to finish up your thoughts. As I said, we'll now be sharing out what we're taking away from these conversations in our breakout. So I will put the Mentimeter link again in the chat and let us know what is one thing you're taking away from your conversation with your group. And I'd love to hear from groups if you'd like to share out any key takeaways, anything you aligned on.
We had a great conversation about medical leave processes. We were just starting to talk about that towards the end, and there is room to think about how do we share that existing policies that have been reviewed and been thought of, that have been promoted at schools, figuring out how to centralize the leave process so that students, have one place that they can go have a conversation and address why they're taking a leave. It's one of Jed's areas. So again, if that's an effort that you're looking to revise or update on your campus, we're here to help you through this partnership and outside of it as well. So we're happy to share resources on that front, but other things that many of you have access, especially if you're in the JED campus program. But if you're not in the program, we have so many samples and things that and ways in which we've helped schools. So just a note on that.
Thank you, Erica. And while you were saying that, I saw it pop up actually. So the need for like a written policy on how to respond to a crisis. So just having those clear processes in place. I'll read some of these out. Processes that just need to be seamless. The importance of campus support and communication. The consistent communication, again, we're seeing that a lot here. Retraining is key to ensure that carrying systems are accessed, referred into at the best level of care. The need to ask to see the written crisis procedure from our public safety office, so bridging that connection with other teams on campus. So yeah, it looks like communication is a big thing here. Does anyone want to elaborate on their response? I'd love to hear what your group spoke about.
Hi, I'm Bob. I'm bad at silence. So I'll share. I wrote the longest response, go figure. That the retraining piece, and I know um Mary and Tiffany both shared sort of some of their experiences with um some training initiatives, but then also how the individualization for our campus sort of dictates what those opportunities might be. And sorry, Mary, for summarizing what you shared, but there's not a mental health services space on their campus, and so they have to use community partners, and those are great, but there's lead time with that, there's difficulty with that, and so going from 0 to 60 on a student crisis requires some form of support in the middle. And so sort of trying to both build that, but then also making sure that folks know that you don't have to go to 60 miles an hour all the time necessarily. And so how do we build that capacity? Um, but then for us, I know, and I didn't share this in the group, but I think it's reflected in some way in our culture at NKU. The only people that respond at a moment's notice to any kind of emergency are our university police. Um, and that's, I think, carries with it that culture of sort of, in some ways, over response to some situations, because that's not always what is the most warranted um, response, especially in a mental health crisis moment where a student is actually experiencing a mental health crisis. So we're working on that, but at the same time, we would love for people to refer people into our stepped care, what we've tried to build around stepped care, um, before they're at, and maybe they're not even at, but maybe there's a perception that they're at a crisis stage.
Thank you, Bob. That's a great point.
I think I made 5, so I'm sorry, but I appreciate it.
Well, they were all great. Thank you so much. Now we will go into, in the interest of time, into our resources that we thought would be great for y'all to take away. I will go ahead and post those in the chat so you can follow along. But we wanted to start off with some 24/7 mental health support. In our breakouts, we talked about this as well, 988 crisis text line. As always, this is available 24/7, call, text, or chat. Specifically, a resource that I feel like most don't know about, you can actually order print materials from 988 specifically for free for your campus. I put that link as well in the chat for you to order. Yeah, they have logos, flyers, even like safety planning sheets, which I think can be great for like counseling centers. And so yeah, great resource. Mental Health Awareness Month is next month, and Jed has started a campaign here for this, including a guide that specifically walks you through how you can promote this on your campus. That is also in the link in the chat. And if you have any questions at all on how to promote this, we are happy to guide that as well. We post actions, tips on our Instagram, and other social media platforms. So yeah, take a look at the guide and let us know if you have any questions there. Jed's Mental Health Resource Center. I always recommend this. It's such a great place for students just to go in. As you see, like on the screen, I'm experiencing maybe academic stress or trauma. They can just click that in there, and there's tons of resources for them to go in and learn further about how to gain support. Lastly, we also wanted to provide therapy resources. These are just ways to find, specifically directories to find support and care. As Ashley spoke about, after crises, how do we support students? How can they be connected to care? And so these are just places that can be a starting point. And so, yeah. And I wanted to give a shout out to the mental health convening next month. Maybe I'll pass it to Ashley to just give us a quick overview of the day.
Yes, here we are, as Erica said, year 3, but community practice 14. This is a combination of all the work we have done during this time. So I'm hoping that you can join us. Registration is going very quickly. It's going to close April 30th, I believe. So if you have not registered, please do. 2 highlights that I will just share is we have been working, the guiding team, shout out to the guiding team who's on the call today. We've been working this past year of trying to help implement a plan that we want to share with campuses so that as we work over the next year, we want to give steps to other campuses who are out there to know, like, how do we define a crisis? For example, what are we doing? How are we doing the things? So that in 1 year's time, we hope that we can move the needle for student success as it relates to mental health. We know students have this as their top priority. So we want to make it ours and to help equip faculty, staff, employees, to help students in need and to know those resources and who that they can call. Second, we have some great keynote speakers and some great breakout sessions for folks to be able to hear what other campuses are doing, how that has been moving the needle for them. And we cannot wait to have such a great day of truly sharing and learning. So if you have not registered, please do. And it's open to all, free. So bring your students, bring your whole counseling centers, bring public safety, bring anybody that wants to continue to be a part of this great journey of helping our students. So any other questions, feel free to reach out to me. I know a few folks traveling across the state have asked for hotel suggestions. I'm happy to give that to you as well. But yeah, we just hope it's going to be a really good day of sharing and learning. So thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. And yes, we hope to see you there. And I put the link in the chat if you want to register as well. So thank you everyone for joining our session today. Please, oh, sorry, we have a quick question. When does registration close? Ashley, do you have an answer for that?
Yes, April 30th. It might be a little soon because I think we're close to capacity, but April 30th for sure is the day.
And hotel suggestions, I suggest reaching out to Ashley. Her email's on the screen. She'd be happy to provide those. But thank you, everyone. I'm putting the post survey in the chat. This just helps us improve sessions as they go. Yeah, let us know if you have any questions. Nan, thank you for providing your email information as well. And yeah, thank you. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. And as always, we're here. Thank you, everyone.
Good to see y'all. Take care.
Thank you.